that subscribe button now.
And look at me, sweetie. Put down your phone for a second and just listen to my voice. I was sitting at this little bistro in the West Village last night, tucked away in a velvet booth with a glass of Bordeaux, just watching the world go by. I saw a young woman at the corner table, and she was stunning, wearing a dress that probably cost a month's rent, but her eyes, they were frantic. She was staring at her phone like it was the only source of oxygen in the room. When it finally buzzed, her whole face lit up, a blinding, desperate radiance, only to crumble into 1,000 shards of anxiety a second later. I knew that look. And it reminded me so much of myself 20 years ago, chasing what I thought was a legendary love. But honey, I need to tell you something that took me a decade of tears to learn. That wasn't love. It was a high. We often mistake the chaos for chemistry, don't we? And we think if it doesn't hurt, if it doesn't make our heart race with fear and uncertainty, then it's somehow lesser or boring. But listen carefully. I'm your auntie, and I've walked through these fires so you don't have to. And today, we are going to perform surgery on your heart to find out if you are actually in love or if you are just used to the pain. Let's talk about Chapter 1, the glitter versus the gold. You see, gold is heavy, it's silent, it doesn't need to scream to prove its value. Glitter, on the other hand, is light, distracting, and gets everywhere, but it has no substance. That spark you feel when he ignores you for 3 days and then calls at midnight? That's not gold, sweetie. That's the adrenaline of a gambler who just hit a small jackpot after losing everything. Real love doesn't chip away at your soul. It builds a foundation. If you feel like you're constantly diminishing yourself to fit into his world, you aren't in a relationship. You're in a disappearing act. Remember, a strange new happiness is 100 times better than a familiar misery. It's time to stop mistaking the sting of a wound for the heat of passion. Honey, let's sit closer for a moment because this part, and it's going to sting a little, but it's the kind of sting that saves your life. I want to talk about why you're really staying in that relationship, even when it feels like a heavy, cold anchor around your neck. You tell yourself it's loyalty or commitment, but usually it's just the sunk cost fallacy playing tricks on your beautiful mind. Think about it like this. Imagine I bought this exquisite vintage Chanel bag. I spent a fortune on it, saved for months. But every time I wear it, the strap digs into my shoulder so hard it leaves bruises, and the clasp is so broken it keeps dropping my keys. If I keep carrying that bag just because I spent so much money on it, am I being loyal to my investment? No, sweetie, I'm being a martyr for a piece of leather that doesn't work. And you've spent 2 years, maybe 5, trying to fix this man. You've invested your tears, your sleep, and your precious youth. And now, the thought of walking away feels like admitting you wasted all that time. But listen to your auntie. Staying another year just because you spent 3 years already is like finishing a rotten meal just because you paid for it. You aren't saving anything. You're just making yourself sicker. Real love is supposed to be a sanctuary, not a project that leaves you bankrupt. And I once knew a woman, brilliant, a soul like a summer sunset, who stayed with a man who made her feel invisible for a decade. When I asked her why, she cried and said, "Auntie, if I leave now, what were the last 10 years for?" I told her, those years were your tuition. You paid for the lesson. Now don't stay for the graduation of more pain. Because every single day you spend holding onto a rotten rope, you're only hurting your own hands. Every day you stay is a day you aren't available for the man who will actually cherish you. Trust me, an unfamiliar happiness is 100 times better than a familiar misery. But you know, it's not just the time you've spent. And it's the way your brain has started to crave the very thing that's hurting you. Let's look at why that push and pull feels so much like a drug. Let's get real about that push and pull game you're playing, honey. You call it passion, you call it an intense connection, but let's call it what it really is, an addiction. It's like being at a casino in Vegas at 4 in the morning. You're exhausted, your pockets are empty, but you can't leave that slot machine because you're waiting for that one tiny win to make all the losing worth it. When he's cold, you starve for his attention. Then, when he finally gives you a crumb of affection, your brain explodes with dopamine. That's not a soulmate connection, sweetie. That's a trauma bond. Listen to me carefully. Those sparks you're so proud of? Often they aren't a sign of destiny. They're a red flag. Fireworks are loud and flashy, but they burn out and leave nothing but smoke. You don't need a firework. You need a warm, steady floor heater that keeps you safe all night. I've seen so many brilliant women waste their best years addicted to the high of a man who only loves them when he's about to lose them. They think the drama is a sign of how much they care, but real love is actually quite quiet. It's stable. Yeah, it's predictable in the best possible way. If you're constantly wondering where you stand, if you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop, you aren't in love, you're in suspense. And sweetie, life is too short to live in a thriller movie you never asked to star in. Your heart isn't a toy for someone else's ego. But it's not just your mind that's suffering. Your body is trying to tell you the truth, even when you're busy making excuses for him. Let's talk about the signals you've been ignoring. Honey, I want you to go into your bathroom right now and just look at your reflection. Truly look. Your mind is a brilliant storyteller. It can weave 1,000 excuses for why he didn't call or why he was just stressed when he was cruel. But your body? Your body is a truth teller that doesn't know how to lie. Have you noticed how your shoulders are always up to your ears lately? Or that dull, constant ache in your stomach the moment his name pops up on your screen? And that's not butterflies, sweetie. That's your nervous system sounding a 5-alarm fire because it senses you aren't safe. When I was in that attached phase of my life, my skin broke out, my hair lost its shine, and I was perpetually exhausted regardless of how much I slept. I looked like a version of myself that had been left out in the rain for too long. People would ask if I was sick, and I'd say, "No, I'm just in love." But I wasn't in love. I was in a state of high alert survival. Your intuition is your most powerful weapon, but you've been silencing it to keep the peace with someone who doesn't even offer you peace in return. If you find yourself crying until your eyes are swollen, remember that while tears can be soap for the soul, you shouldn't have to wash your soul every single night just to survive a relationship. Real love should make you bloom, not wither. If your body is shrinking, if you're losing your glow, it's because you're pouring your precious life force into a black hole. Listen to that off feeling in your gut. It's not insecurity, it's your intuition whispering that this path is wrong. And the most dangerous thing? You start thinking this exhaustion is normal. You start thinking that you can fix him or change the situation if you just try a little harder. But that's the biggest trap of all. And let's talk about why your fixer instinct is actually your own worst enemy. Oh, sweetie, let's talk about that fixer crown you've been wearing lately. It's heavy, it's tarnished, and it's doing absolutely nothing for your hairstyle. I see it in your eyes, that look of a woman who believes if she just loves him a little harder, speaks a little softer, or stays a little longer, he will magically transform into the man she sees in her dreams. But wake up, honey. You are falling in love with a potential that doesn't exist, instead of the reality that is standing right in front of you. And listen to your auntie. You are not a Red Cross volunteer, and you certainly didn't sign up for a lifelong humanitarian mission. You came here for a relationship, for a partner, for someone to hold your hand while you walk through the world, not for a renovation project that requires 24/7 emotional labor. It's time to close the lid, lock the gate, and put a no vacancy sign on your heart. You aren't being selfish by doing this. You are treating yourself with the respect you've been begging him to give you. And think of this coming week as a luxury date with your own soul. Go buy that expensive coffee, find a sun-drenched corner of a park, and just exist. Don't look at your phone. Don't check his social media for breadcrumbs of his life. Look at the trees, feel the wind on your face, and realize that you are still here, standing tall and breathing, even without him. You aren't lonely. You are finally free to curate a life that actually fits who you are becoming. Look around your room. It's the mirror of your inner world. Fill it with things that make you smile and peace that makes you feel safe. I know it's terrifying to walk away from what's familiar, and the pain you know often feels safer than the happiness you don't. But trust your auntie on this, because I've been where you are. An unfamiliar happiness is 100 times better than a familiar misery. Yeah, you were never meant to be a supporting character in someone else's tragedy, or a repairman for a broken heart that doesn't want to be fixed. You are the star of your own cinematic masterpiece. And sweetie, look at how far we've come today. We stripped away the fake glitter, we broke the addiction to the toxic high, we listened to the wisdom of your body, and we finally put down the heavy, exhausting tools of the fixer. And what's left after all that work? Just you. And you know what? You are enough. You are enough even when you're standing alone in a quiet room. You are enough without a title, without a partner, and without anyone else's permission to exist. You are my pride and joy, and your existence is all the proof of value you will ever need. You're doing better than you think. Your auntie loves you. See you next time.